You want to look for commonality. This is something taught in every field of science that I know having to do with how human behavior does. And in a small town, regardless of how you make up your mind about people, you want to look at the commonality. Now, my very, very first experience of this happened in 1984 in the Midwest in a rural town. And in that particular town, this was during, everyone's old enough to remember about that time when we had all of the horrible crash of the farm prices in the Midwest. And there was a husband and a son, a father and son, on a farm in the Midwest, in the upper Midwest, and their farm was seized by the bank. And their response was to drive their tractor into the side of the bank and kill the bank manager. Kind of a favorite scene. I was there the next week doing conflict management for the town. And I was asked to come in by a church group who was trying to work with what we used to call the issues of displaced homemakers. And they were trying to offer a support network for the widows, the divorced women, the single women who had never developed career or job skills outside of the home and suddenly were having to go out and find a job. And these were women who had never even had their own checkbook, and they were trying to do this stuff. But they were being fought tooth and nail by a lot of different people in the town and the county. So I was there at this retreat for 2.5 days. It was my first big conflict management program. And we were talking through things, and I said, okay, now we're going to apply the information. And I asked everyone, which I'm going to ask you in a minute to do, ask them to write down the name of the person in town who they found the most difficult to deal with on the issues. The town, by the way, was a town of about 5,000, so not tiny, but small, enough that most people knew each other. And everybody in the room wrote down the same name. The mayor. They wrote down the name of the mayor. And they said, well, what the mayor does is that at town meetings he only picks on people who agree with him to speak. So he, in effect, has strangled discourse in our community. And I said, okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look for a point of commonality. And after 30 minutes of listening to them kvetch, I happen to be Jewish. Kvetch means complaining for personal entertainment in Yiddish, right? So after listening to kvetch for 30 minutes, I shamed them. I said, you're all good Christians. And you should be better than this. So I shamed them. And it was a church group, so they all got like rules. They kill birds. Works with Jews, works with Christians. So I said, I'd like you to think about something you have in common with that person, with the mayor, and something you could say about him that's positive. So one of the women finally said, I know him to be a good father, and his son just won the state wrestling championship in his division. I said, great. I said, now, are you willing to try something? Right? I asked her. She said, yes, I'm willing to try something. I said, you know how it is when a friend's family member appears, a little clipping? Like I had an old boyfriend back in Wisconsin that every time one of our old friends from 40, 50 years ago in Wisconsin, if they get their name in the paper, Ken will clip out, actually cut out the clipping and send it to me or send me something by email. It's really nice. Kind of keeps me in touch with what's happening. And I said, would it violate your value system to cut the clipping out of the newspaper and send it to the mayor with a note that says, as one parent to another, I know how proud you must be of your son. And she thought, kind of silent, and she said, well, there's a lot more I'd like to say to him. I said, I understand, but when we're doing this kind of work, we have to be very disciplined, and we have one agenda, commonality. She said, yes, I can do that. I said, okay, I'm going to ask you to do it and report back. So I was there another day, and we went through a whole bunch of other stuff, and people wrote out their little exercises and assignments. And she called me a week later, and I, again, had no idea if this was going to work, and she said, it was very interesting. He never acknowledged the note, but he called on me last night at the city council meeting. And then she said the exact same thing that the director said. She said, I'm a middle-aged woman. Why has it taken me so long to do this? So one of the things you have to look in your heart is that the grievances you have against the people you don't like in your town are partly because you yourself aren't willing to forgive what it is they did for the sake of the town, in effect, for the sake of the community that you're in? Or are you holding on your own attachment to you feeling justified to be self-righteous about what they did and saying, my bad behavior is justified because look at what they did to me. And you know what? I don't care. I don't care what they did to you. I don't care what they did to you, when they did to you. I don't care how they talked about it. Some of you have heard stories about my mom, and some of you know this story very well, but my mother was at a public meeting a number of years ago, and she was on the board of her condo, and somebody from the condo group, and I'll tell you, don't you think homeowner associations are like